How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Good, good, good. Thank you. Happy Thursday.
Yep, one more day to rest.
If ever we do rest, you rest on weekends.
Not really. It's now become my studying time, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
better than work, I guess.
Okay. What are you studying?
I'm doing my MBA at the moment.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why. Don't ask me why I did it. I regret it a lot.
No, the first thought that crossed me was that, oh, okay, I'm afraid of you. I was like, okay, MBA. I know.
No,
That's,
trust me. I'm
that's
seeing flames.
discipline, eh?
Sorry.
No, I'm saying that's like hectic discipline, to commit to that. Like 2 years of no social activities or whatever.
I think I underestimated how much you need to sacrifice to get this degree done. I thought after law, I can do anything but wow.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's really great. So this is you've just started now this year.
No, I'm in my second year now.
Oh, okay. So this is the final lab, right? Like you're right at the end, close.
No, the one I'm doing is over 3 years. So in my third year,
Oh,
I just do my thesis though. So this is the second year of classes, and then third, it's actually just half a year afterwards. I have to do my
yeah.
thesis. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway,
So
power to you. Yeah. Okay. All right. No, that's great. I will start with a disclaimer. So, the kids are still awake, so you might hear a bit of some commotion in the background.
yeah, that's fine, don't worry.
It's a bit crazy this side. Yeah, thank you for making yourself available. To talk to me. You know how people say when they talk to lawyers that they feel intimidated. Um, I feel intimidated today, so I'm
Yeah,
like,
there's no reason to be. Trust me, I'm very nervous. I don't really like speaking about myself. If you had asked me just about the law, I think I'd be
yes,
fine.
yeah, just don't cross-examine me or don't psychoanalyze, you
Not at
know,
all.
you trick questions. But thank you, Cindy, for making yourself available. I think just to give this context, so to introduce you to our audience, we've got a few people that are online, and thanks to those that have joined us tonight. Last week I said something because it crossed my mind at that second, which was I really don't know what's the hot thing on TV or Showmax or whatever. Well, not Showmax because but you can play it anytime. But what's the hot thing on a Thursday at 7 p.m.? So whoever is joining us right now, would rather be here with us than checking out whatever is hot on TV. I really don't know. I think it's the news on SABC 3. So anyway, um, thanks guys for joining us. By way of introduction, Cindy is an experienced attorney, a trustee, board member with demonstrated history and working in the legal services industry and nonprofit space. She's skilled in negotiation. I'm sure you will see some of those skills when we are talking. She'll try to like maneuver and be like negotiation, labor relations, corporate law, cross-border legal specialists, management training, youth and women empowerment, and arbitration. I think there's a couple of those that I've mentioned already. My mind is going all over the place. In terms of not my mind, but even my how they do the what do they call those tests when they check if you're lying?
Oh,
Um,
um, I lie detector test.
yes, and your heartbeat goes a bit somewhere. So that's where I'm at right now. Strong business and development professional with both local and international experience. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. as the BrownSense live crew. So I think, by way of introduction, can you tell us who is Cindy Rose, outside of your professional space? Maybe a bit about, your background, your childhood, etc.
Okay, so I'm originally from Cape Town. I'm based in Johannesburg at the moment. But I think since I can remember, I wanted to be an attorney. I think my intention for being an attorney was very different to your normal litigators. Um, I was delusional at the time to think I can save the world with law. Little did I know, it doesn't work like
Yeah,
that. It doesn't work like that. So I think I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer.
yeah,
It was really from TV. I think it was Law and Order that my mom used to watch or something that inspired me to be an attorney. So I wasn't one of those kids in high school. If you asked me, or primary school already, if you asked me what do you want to be, I knew I wanted to be an attorney.
wow,
Um, but like I said, was very reality hits you when you actually walk into court to understand that that's not how the world works. So
yes, yes,
um, was very intentional to study at UWC because of the history and the history it had with the struggle and all of those things. So I think I always knew I had an element to me that I wanted to fight for fairness of others. So a lot of my career, and that's why it always sounds, I think I confuse people because I do a lot of things. So I'm in the NGO space. Currently I work in human rights because I think I've always had a passion for trying to speak on behalf of those who can't speak, or at least to fight for those who can't. And I think that's why I always tell people I was a bit deluded to think that the law would be that vehicle. So I make my money via commercial employment law, but my heart and passion, I think if I had money, I'd be in development work full time.
sure,
So yeah, went did the whole corporate thing, and that's where the international experience comes from. Because when I moved to Johannesburg, I had the opportunity to work for a chemical company. So they specialized in manufacturing fertilizer and mining explosives. So I've worked in aviation as
wow,
well. Recently, I was head of employee relations at Mango before things went wrong.
yes,
And then, but like I said, I have mining experience also due to the company I worked at, and then agricultural experience. At some point, I think I did the typical thing as a Black woman where you want to just be everything in a company. So
yeah,
that's where 29 countries that I managed came in, but learned the hard way that it's not the best way to prove that you're smart, because I was doing commercial legal work, labor relations, which is stressful on its own, dealing with unions, and then
yeah,
managing the BE and employment equity for a multinational. Burnt out because, like I said, I think I just had the target that I wanted to be a director, so
yeah,
was
yeah,
working all the time.
sure,
Had no social life because between work and the NGO that we had, just had no time for myself. Burnt out, quit corporate. I think it was 2017. I quit corporate and then looked after my NGO full time, and then started my own company, which is Imani Consult. So with the reason I started my own company was I didn't take any money from the NGO, so I had to find a way to really look after myself for that time. So yeah, like I said, I've had an interesting life because I've jumped in and out of corporate
yeah,
as and when I need the money. But yeah, effectively, I think my mother also raised us to just look out for other people. So both myself and my brother, we've always dabbled in between corporate and development. He stayed in corporate though full time.
yeah,
I
yeah,
haven't. I've tried my hand at different things, but yeah,
sure.
literally just someone from a small town in Cape Town called Kraaifontein. Most people don't know where that's from, but it's
So
way
what
funny.
is it called?
Also. It's close to Durbanville, but it's a very small little colored area. Or
Yeah,
like, lack of a better word, but it's a small little area. Nobody really knows where it is.
yeah,
It's on the outside of Cape Town. But really, very small family. Only have a brother, my mom. But I think both of us were just instilled with the ethic that whenever you work and do something, you need to bring someone along. And I think we've both taken that through our life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really, really powerful. And you've answered some of the questions that I had for for you. Because I was going to ask you what made you to choose law, right? So I think, when you say um, to fight or speak for those that can't do it for themselves, that's a noble thing. I think there's actually a Bible scripture that says something to that effect, but I might be wrong. If anyone
No,
that's listening, please
yeah.
say it in the comments. So you're saying,
There is a Bible verse, because I think when I say I'm Christian, and
yeah,
because all my work involves fighting all the time. So if I'm not
oh,
fighting in the community, I'm fighting a union. People generally don't connect that to being a Christian, and I always remind them God also says you need to speak on behalf of those who can't speak
yeah,
for themselves.
yeah.
So I'm not being unchristian like by fighting.
True, true. Yeah, I know I've seen it. Like that's why I'm like, okay,
I
my
can't
my.
remember exactly where though.
I have a feeling it's somewhere around the Book of Psalms, thereabouts.
Probably.
But anyone who is listening that might know, please hit us in the
Let us
comments.
know.
Yeah. So what would you say is the one thing? Not one is in like literally one thing, but what that thing that you love about the law? I think I sort of do have an idea. Um, yeah, but I think just from your experience and also from your the inspiration for you to get into that space. Yeah.
I think one thing I like about the law is you get to help people, because I think people often misunderstand that they see only the portion that you're in court arguing, and the fact of the matter is most of us are looking for solutions for people, whether it's commercial solutions, labor related solutions. You're helping people, and I think that's why I always veer off more to labor relations. It's not the area that makes a lot of money and human rights, but it's an
Yeah.
area that, because of my expertise, if I do my work right, it's a cost saving to your company, but it also
Yeah.
offers protection for employees, and it creates a conducive environment to work in if I do what I need to do right. So I think it's just being able to help people solve problems. Um, and then the element of you always look like the smart one. So I think I like that as well.
Yeah. I think I've heard a few people saying that lawyers have a god complex. So
I always remind them when they say that, they like saying we're arrogant, but who's the first one you call when you're in trouble? It's your lawyer. So it is what it is.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh, very interesting. So tell me, from your experience, and I think the areas of law that you've chosen, um, they sort of lean in the servicing or the helping of people that are almost either they are very much helpless or almost helpless. From your experience, from what you've observed, um, how do you view how accessible legal assistance is? I think that's the first part of the question. I won't ask the second part just yet because it's just going to be a bit heavy. Yeah.
I think in South Africa, or in most places, though, it isn't very accessible. It's the law is really, and I think that's where my disillusion with the law has come in. Is it's not accessible, and the more money you have, the more right you have to infringe on others' rights. And I think how we're trained as lawyers as well is that you need to win. Ethics are always a bit in the middle of what's right and wrong, and you're taught to win and not find solutions that actually work for both sides.
Mm.
So personally, I don't think the law is accessible. I'll use just employment as a base for that. Is
So,
most employees actually don't know what their rights are. Company is not going to tell you how to get around it. When you're in trouble, most people can't afford to go to a lawyer to get the help that
mm,
they need. And that is something basic that should be easily accessible. I think the advantage we have in SA is our legislation is all on the internet. So it's accessible, the information is accessible, but most
Yeah.
people don't know how to decipher and dilute it and actually make it applicable.
Yeah.
And as much as we would love to give free legal advice, it's also our bread and butter. So it's not like we can be sitting educating people for free all the
So,
time. So
yeah.
I definitely, I think South Africa has made progress by way of CCMA. That
Mm.
literally it helps level the playing field for employees, and I think
Yeah. Yeah.
Africans generally don't actually realize that we're one of the few countries in the world that has something like that, that actually gives
Yeah.
employees free legal access. And you don't need a lawyer, you don't need to understand the law when you go to CCMA. You get all of that guidance from there. So I
Mm.
think in most cases, court especially, it's not. I think we can do better, but I think we are further ahead than most other countries.
Yeah. 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 That's very interesting. It's very interesting. So there's a thought that crossed my mind while you were talking. So when you were touching on the point of, you can't give free legal advice and all that. Do you think it's fair to say, and if you think so, please tell me why you think so. It's fair to say that lawyers are kind of seen in the same light as preachers. Like how the community will depend on a preacher. I don't have to go to their church or be a member, but if we know there's church so and so in space, if I have a death in my family or whatever, there's that person that I know we can all run to for some kind of counsel, comforting, guidance, etc. Do you think lawyers kind of fall into that category where, and maybe that's why people say, I want to pick your brain type thing and not really expect to pay for whatever that you have to offer?
I think so. In that regard, like you pointed it out, because I always remind people, I don't think they realize how disrespectful it is to ask a lawyer, can I have a quick question? And then you're actually asking for full on legal advice and an opinion. Because they won't do that with a doctor. They won't go ask a pharmacist, oh, can I have free tablets? So why is it okay to ask me? And you, and I'm sure you've also gotten it. Ah, but you're only going to use a template, and I'm like, actually, no, I'm not one of those lawyers that is just going to forward something. I actually check what I send you. So it's not that simple for me just to give things away. So with me, I tend to remind people that when you come to me for your quick question, you're also getting the years that I have had to work and gain experience. You're not
Yeah.
just getting some section in an act that a student could give you. So
So,
I do think so. I don't understand why people do it. Psychologists also claim that they get
mm,
quick questions as well. But I always remind them, like, are you going to go into Discam and ask for free tablets? So why are you asking me for free things?
yeah, yeah. It's funny you mentioned. I don't want free advertising. Ne? It's funny you mentioned this scam because every time I see people writing about them in the social media space, I don't feel like that about them. But what I see is people saying, "I went to this camp for one thing. I came out with 10 things." You know,
But it's true
but
though.
anyway, but every time I read it, I'm like, I can't relate. I usually go for what I want, and I come out with what I wanted. But
I'm also
anyway,
one of those that come out with 10 things, even though you went for one.
yeah, yeah, you've touched on a very sore point here. I think a very I wouldn't say highly contentious per se, but um, from your experience, right? So I'm a business owner. I'm building my startup or wherever I'm at in terms of my business journey. Um, how would you advise me, right, to relate to you, as in, um, should I wait until I'm in trouble to come to you, or should I have some kind of a proactive relationship that I develop, and how does that look like? How do I find the right person, etc.? I don't know if I'm making sense with my.
No, you are.
Yeah.
um, what I normally advise, and especially small businesses, is that
Yeah.
you need to start when you're developing your business plan, build in legal advice, because people tend to come at the back end when there's problems, and I'm going to charge you more for cleaning up your mess versus having all of your documentation and your compliance ready up front. And I think what I've always advised is, and look, I'm an entrepreneur as well, so I know we tend to cut corners because you don't want to spend, because every cent you spend, there's a risk. But who's that guy? I always use it as an example of late as well. He
Yeah.
sells the sneakers that also didn't have all his compliance in order. Now that he's making money, someone came knocking on the door to say, "Hey, remember I gave you this," and there's no agreement, so now he owes the person money. And I think it's always rather have a conversation with your attorney and rather make a payment plan then, but get your things in order. Because what entrepreneurs tend to do is they Google documents, and I've had it so many
Yeah.
times that you can't see they Google something and asks you, okay, can you review it? And I'm like, I'm still going to charge you per hour because I have to redo the whole thing. So you're not being smart by sending me something that I can see you took off the internet. So
Yeah.
I would say invest, and at the start of your business, invest in getting proper employment contracts, proper, and there's some that you basically need, is your service level agreement, your non-disclosure agreement, having a decent employment contract. Because what a lot of them do as well is they'll get these contracts from the accountants, not factoring in, and those employment contracts don't factor in the industry, so you wouldn't have a employment contract that's industry specific, so you're still going to land up in issues because it doesn't cover what it's supposed to cover. So I would always advise is get these basic agreements that you do need in the beginning already, that will just sufficiently cover you until the time that you can review and have decent agreements in place, or have a legal counsel that you can get full time. What I generally would also remind entrepreneurs about is, because they like to think that they're smart enough to do contracts, and then you'll get a service level agreement that's 3 pages, and when you explain to them, you realize you've written a whole lot of nothing. Just because there's service level agreement on top doesn't mean you're covered. Invest in decent agreements and make sure that whoever you're going to actually has the experience in what it is that you're doing. Because I'm embarrassed to say, but I know a lot of lawyers that they know they've never worked in corporate, they've never actually closed a deal, but would give you an agreement that doesn't sufficiently cover you. And because they're cheaper, the entrepreneur would go to them versus you that actually has the experience. And they wouldn't want to pay you because you're charging a bit more, where they could have just spoken to you and negotiated the fee. Because look, I'm not saying please call me and negotiate fees, but I'm more likely to do it if it's if black business versus a corporate. And I think the one thing I would would ask small businesses is, don't be arrogant in thinking that you're smart enough to do your agreements. If a Richard Branson and Elon Musk has a whole legal department that does all the things, why do you think you as a small business owner has is sufficient knowledge to cover yourself on those things? And it's always the small things that slip you up later on, because it might not happen immediately in your first year or your second year, but as your business grows, if your initial documentation isn't right, it's gonna catch up at some point.
Wow. You know, you've touched on something that's very key, and I think that a lot of people don't think about. You mentioned a lawyer that has the expertise or the experience in closing a deal. Because I think that's a different skill set, and maybe a lot of people don't imagine a lawyer to have that kind of a skill. Because there's this perception that lawyers like to prolong things, right? Negotiations, add extra verbiage to a contract just so that they clock in the time which translates into the bill, right? But take us through what your thinking and from your experience when you talk about closing the deal, because to me that is a deal maker lingo or a salesman, saleswoman language. Like close the deal. It's quarter end type thing. We have a target to hit. So, so yeah,
So, and I think that's where the difference is if you've been
yeah,
a senior corporate lawyer, you would have been involved in closing deals. I'll
yeah,
use an example of in South Africa, we have a lot of issues around BE. So
yeah.
most people would only understand the sections in law, but if you're merging a company and you're selling a company, most lawyers wouldn't know to negotiate if you're the person selling off most of your company, to negotiate minority shares, all of those things. It's not something that's in a section somewhere in an act. You learn it by experience and closing. And there's a lot of times where you can't be the face of the agreement or you can't be reflected on any of the documentation. Most lawyers won't know that actually there's something called the session agreement that would sufficiently cover your rights in it. It comes with experience, and it comes with being in a certain industry. And I think those are just examples where if you have a more experienced lawyer, they might have they might come pricier, but most of us would have a fairly good understanding of business, not just the law, and
Mhm.
how to merge a solution that helps your business but then remains legal. And that a junior attorney is never going to know. If they haven't been, it took me years. I've been in law years, and there's still things that I learn all the time. And I still have to call around to my legal friends to bounce things off from them, because it's not just about understanding the legislation. It's really, if, and especially I think it's key for small businesses that most of them wouldn't have access to your Santon lawyers and stuff. But there's a lot of us that have left that space and have left corporate, that are actually doing our own thing, but have sufficient knowledge to actually guide you through and to tell you where the risks are long term, all of those things. So I think for that reason, my biggest advice was for small businesses would be really check if the person has the actual knowledge and not just litigation knowledge, because an attorney that litigates versus someone that comes from a commercial side, we think very differently. I
Yeah,
don't go to court. I refer my matters when I know it needs to go to court, because at court something needs to be argued very differently to me negotiating a contract with another business.
mm,
So there needs to be clear, I think, a clear understanding that all of us don't do the same thing. And just because I don't go to court doesn't mean I'm the dumb one. I can actually do a lot more than your litigator can, for your business. But I also know when to refer it away and when it's something's not my expertise. And actually, on that, with my expertise, if you have a lawyer that says they can do everything, they're lying to you. Because they just want your money. Because none of us are experts on everything. We have a
yeah,
specialized niche for a reason.
yeah,
And if your lawyer is not referring your way, one minute they're doing trademarks, then they're doing commercial, then they're doing labor, and they never tell you, actually, no, I don't know, let me call someone. They're just wasting your money in that regard. And that is one of the key things to look out for, is
yeah.
someone that's the jack of all trades.
I've seen those. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They do bails, divorces,
They do everything. You can call them for everything.
debt collections, RAF.
So really be careful of those. And I'm not saying you don't get lawyers that can do a lot, but in
Yeah,
most cases, they're missing you.
yeah, yeah. No, that's really powerful. So I mean, like you sound like someone that if I was a as an entrepreneur, that I would need someone like yourself, next to my side. How do I access your services? How do I maybe take us through what Imani Consult does in terms of the catalog of services, and also how do we reach you and so forth.
So I'm very bad. I still don't have a website. I'm really just looking for referrals. But I'm getting a website soon. But
Yeah,
you can get me on LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest platform where I actually respond, because social media, I don't respond to my inboxes. So LinkedIn would
yeah,
probably be best. But what I do is I do a lot of commercial agreements, but I focus, and I shouldn't say I focus, I enjoy the ones that are cross-border, where you're negotiating something of businesses in another country that's doing business with South Africa. And then I do labor relations. I don't go to CCMA though, because that doesn't make money. People generally don't want to pay for your time at CCMA.
Yeah.
I can, but generally I know most small businesses wouldn't be able to afford you. So what I generally do is I'll prepare you for going to do your matter.
Or for you to do
Um,
yourself. So
yeah,
as
so that they can do it themselves. Yeah.
excuse me.
And it's also that works out a bit cheaper for the client as well versus me
Yeah.
sitting there all day.
Yeah.
And then I do disciplinary hearings. Or not myself. I have people that go out and do disciplinary hearings. I don't think I have the patience for it anymore. But your union negotiations, a lot of my work lately has been doing employment contracts, setting up the company's policies and governance. So where the
Yeah.
governance comes in is I do sit on board. So it's not experience that I got via working. It's I sit on board. So I've had to learn what governance is.
Mm.
So I have a bit of governance experience, so I can give advice on those things as well. And you're drafting your a decent MOI or a shareholders
Oh,
agreement.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't just do legal stuff. Like I said, a large part of what I do is development work. So a lot of people do ask me for assistance on CSI activities, registering
Yeah.
NGOs, and giving guidance on how to get funding for your NGO, all of those things. Because, like I said, a big passion of mine is helping, especially young people. Um, I really, I would do that probably for free in most cases as well, is because that's where my passion is. So yeah, I do a bit of everything though under the consultancy. And like I said, I don't work by myself. I do have consultants that I use to do a lot of the stuff.
Okay, cool. Okay, that sounds really great. I'm just trying to pull your, I don't know if I typed the right link. I did. So I'm gonna pull your LinkedIn profile, ne? Excuse me, and then share it on the screen here so that because you said that's your preferred or most reliable way that people can reach you.
I'd actually answer you there.
Sorry?
No, I said I actually answer people on LinkedIn. I don't answer on any other
Oh,
platform.
yeah. So that people don't are not like, that lady, I saw her on BrownSense Live.
But
I
she
sent
didn't
her a
reply
friend
to my
request,
Facebook.
and then she didn't respond to my, you know how it goes. So I'm gonna put it here. So let me just do this. So I do find the back end only. There you go. Okay, cool. There you go. That's your link there.
Thank you.
I'll also add it to the comments. Okay, that's really helpful to know. I think in BrownSense, I've seen a couple of posts where people are looking for those kinds of services in the raising funds. Sorry for NGO services or organizations. I mean, but the CSI side as well is really helpful to know. So I think whoever is listening to this, I've shared Cindy's LinkedIn profile link. But this interview will also be uh, living in our social media, what you call platforms. There's a question that I had in mind while you were saying something around the CSI and NGO side of things, but it escaped my mind just now. So let me just try to revive my memory by reading these notes here. Justice, SNMEs, money. I think that's it. Um, okay, it's about policies. Yeah, I wrote a note here. It's about policies. One thing I've seen, uh, and I think because of BrownSense and the position that it has placed me in terms of um, being able to observe, certain things. Some people will, come to me to ask me, do you know someone who does 1, 2, 3, or whatever. A lot of and you can't blame them also, because when you start a business, primarily you focus on the key service or product that you're developing and that you're selling, right? Compliance will be the last thing in your mind, contracts, etc., all those types of things. HR policies are definitely somewhere way, 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 way down until there's an issue that comes up and you need to have a disciplinary process or someone is
Yeah.
taking you to the CMA. So when you say you do policies, what you mean is that I can come to you and say, Cindy, I need help for BrownSense to have HR policies that cover basically anything and everything that a company requires an HR policy for. Is that what you mean?
Yes, so I do like for corporate. I obviously do very different. I'll do an in-depth policy because there I can charge per hour for everything. So
Yeah.
um, what I have developed for small businesses is just a basic HR manual and your basic employment contract
Oh,
templates that
I
I
see.
can sell it at least for cheaper, and then I know
Yeah.
you covered sufficiently.
Okay.
But I always advise my clients that the minute you can afford to get decent policies or policies that are specifically developed for your company, do that.
Yeah.
Don't ignore it. Because
Yeah.
as your company grows, your risks grow, so you need to be covered for different things. So I generally have different rates. If it's a black small business, I'm willing to negotiate my rates. I'm not going to now charge you the same that I'm going to charge for a corporate company.
Yeah.
I'm not that mean.
Yeah.
So I generally vary, and I'm willing to negotiate my rates with a small business, provided they
Yeah.
back. I'm not with corporate there, and I think I intentionally went into it that I make my money via corporate.
Yeah.
Small businesses is also a passion of mine because I think the more of us have proper businesses that are properly governed, the better for our community. So,
Yeah.
and that is why I am willing to assist. But I also find generally the people that don't want to pay are the people that have money. I've had a few clients where I've actually done it for free because I could see they could really not, but they were trying to negotiate small amounts, and because they were genuine, I just did it for them. But I
Oh,
generally find it's the people that actually can pay you that don't want to pay that negotiate.
yeah. Yeah. No, I've seen that. That's really helpful. But I will say, that, guys, don't take advantage of Cindy. Don't go in asking for a discount from the get go.
Trust me, I don't give it very easily, so they can come and try.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really great. Thank you. I think we've covered, quite a lot of ground. Um, so I've shared your link. I will do it just now again before, or maybe just after we've closed, so that people know, where and how to find you. But otherwise, I hope that we can have a lot more of these. The plan is, to gradually build towards having them as a face-to-face thing, not just a virtual, engagement. So hopefully, one of these days soon we'll have something like that. Yeah.
Seeing that we are getting our freedom back slowly.
You saw, yeah, no more masks in public, but
When we're outside, so we're getting our freedom back slowly but surely.
definitely, yeah. Now that you say, sorry, just one last bit. Out of interest, have you ever had anyone asking you for? You don't have to give us the details if you have, but asking you to help them draft a mandatory vaccination policy in anticipation of any changes in the law or whatever.
I really I didn't go into that because I know there was a phase that everyone was claiming that they understood the vaccination thing and everybody was
Yeah,
qualified. So I've stayed away from it completely. I've given advice on what to do if the CCMA and stuff happens, but I
great.
haven't really ventured into it.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Okay.
claim, and it's not because I can't. It's just I haven't had interest in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Okay. Cool. Thank you, Cindy. Thanks for your time. Enjoy your evening, and then we'll catch up another time.
Thanks again for having me. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks
bye.
everyone that joined us. Have a good evening. Bye.